I think he would be better off playing in college football in the NFL now, in the same way that a lot of quote-unquote mobile quarterbacks would, because there's a willingness to build around you today in a way that there wouldn't have been in the past. And I'll give you an example of a player right now that's having a tremendous amount of success that a decade ago I don't think would have. Kyler Murray. I don't think anybody would have said 5'8", 5'9", Kyler Murray, I'm going to draft him number 1 overall, and I'm going to build an entire offense around what he can do. I feel like there was a lot of focus in the NFL for much of the last 20 years or so on what you can't do. And figuring out what you can do and trying to build a system around you is something that I think has been an evolution in the NFL and in the thought processes of a lot of coaches. And the NFL used to think of itself as the finishing school, where football was the most advanced. And I think ironically at the quarterback position, high school and college were more laboratories that convinced the NFL of things that could work. Because you used to hear all the time for years and years, that guy's system would never work in the NFL. That guy would never work in major, NFL football. You don't hardly hear that anymore, right? Like you don't hear that much about system quarterbacks anymore.
They always talked about his throw and how it was long or something.
And so I think the Tebow is one of the 4 most impressive SEC quarterbacks that I've ever seen, right? I would put Johnny Manziel in that category at times. I would put Cam Newton. I would put Joe Burrow in his senior season in terms of what he was able to accomplish. All of those guys I would roll in as iconic, one-of-a-kind quarterbacks. Other great quarterbacks, really. Peyton Manning was phenomenal. A guy like Green, who played like 15 years at Georgia and had a tremendous amount of success. I mean, there's lots of guys you can point to, but those 4 were guys that their offenses were so electric, and when they had the ball in their hands, you felt like they could have seasons unlike any other. I think Burrow's got the best single-season quarterback in SEC history, and I think Cam's probably second best if I had to break him down. And I think if Tebow were a decade younger, there would be somebody out there who would say, hey, I'm going to build a system around him. Having said that, he went in the first round, and he won a playoff game. And I think his influence is going to be way more substantial off the field than it was on the field. And I also give Tebow a tremendous amount of credit in that same willingness to fail. I mean, he decided to try baseball. And a lot of people are going to make fun of you and criticize that decision. He tried to play tight end for the Jags, and it didn't work out. What I respect is a willingness to make and take that opportunity as best you can.
Do you think that was an honest try when he was trying to be tight end for the Jags?
I think so. I think, and I haven't asked him about it personally, but I think there's an element when you have a talent that's that much, but also that finite. We talk about guys being old in sports all the time, and they're like 34, 35. In virtually every other profession that you would do, you would still be considered super young if you're having success at 34, 35. In pro athletics, it's like you might as well be 75 at 34, 35. I never was a great athlete, so I can't speak to it perfectly, but I think you don't want to leave anything on the court, right, on the field. For anybody out there who played high school athletics or college athletics, that game you had that was the last one you thought you were going to get to play, that moment in the locker room where you take your jersey off for the final time, potentially, of your career, if you are thoughtful enough to think about it in that moment, you want to feel like you gave it your all. And I think Tebow thought and believed that he still had enough athleticism that he didn't want to be sitting on the sideline with the ability to still compete at the highest level.